So today we are going to discuss George Kelly, the personal construct theory as we know it. First of all, his concept is that every person and every human is going to work like a scientist, and he understands that like scientist, every person is constructing their own reality. Every person is giving in his own interpretations, and like scientists, they are going to make and build up their own hypothesis, and based on those hypotheses, they are going to live up their lives, and they are going to either keep that construct or hypothesis. He says that in his terms that is called the construct, that whatever construct a person is going to develop from his own experiences and his own interpretations, he is going to keep it if it is going to be hopeful, protective and helpful for him, and he is going to get rid of it if it is not helping him. So as we see here, that Kelly suggested that there is a posture that we make, and the posture we use to take, and that posture is going to help us to either adopt it or not to have it. We also develop personal constructs that serve as hypotheses, as we have already discussed it. So this is why it is called personal construct theory in Kelly's terms. And he says that if these constructs, as I have already mentioned, that if these constructs are going to help them, then they are going to keep them because they are not hostile and they are helping them. And if they are hostile and that is not fulfilling the purpose of protecting the person, then they are going to get rid of it. Because of the emphasis he placed on the ways in which people construe the world, Kelly is often perceived as cognitive theorist because he has stressed on knowing, on thought pattern, on how the person is interpreting. So this way people used to force his theory into a cognitive theory, but he also negated that label, or his theory is also being labelized as humanist. But Kelly himself repeatedly said that his theory must be considered and understood as a separate, independent theory and not under the umbrella of cognitive. Then there is his concept, the first concept, that is constructive alternativism. As its name says, something is constructive, something you are building, something you are making, something you are making, building, making, or similar to that as well. And then alternativism is something, as its name is label already said, that something is alternative, so we are constructing some alternatives in this maybe. So now let's go into details. So its label says it clearly. Now when we talk about constructive alternativism, it is about one particular event which is going to have multiple different interpretations. For example, if all of you are attending a class and one of you is going to get out of that class, leaves the class, then there are going to be multiple interpretations. One interpretation will be of his friends who are sitting with him or her, and another interpretation is of a teacher, and another interpretation is of all the generalized class fellows who don't know what is happening. The friends are understanding the situation, that why that student left the class. All the class is not that much in touch with the situation, so they are going to have their own interpretation. That might be he is trying to get rid of this lecture, maybe he is trying to get out of this class, maybe he is not interested into the class. His friends actually know that there was some urgent call, that's why he left. So these are the two different alternative construction. And then there is a third perspective of a teacher who is in the classroom, and she might have not noticed it, or so she's just ignoring it because she understands that this might be something more important, or something might be of an urgent importance, that's why the student left the class. So these are the three different interpretations. Then there could be another interpretation if someone is standing outside. For example, some of the class fellow, anyone, or some teacher, some dean, some HOD, anyone is standing outside, and then they are going to have their own interpretation, that when a student is coming out of the class, when the lecture is going on inside, they are going to have another interpretation of that maybe the student is not engaged, maybe the student is not interested, maybe the student is bunking the class. So what this is constructive alternativism, that every person in the situation is going to construct their own alternative explanation for only one situation. and the person himself is going to have his own interpretation that actually why he went out or why she went out of the class. So in this slide you can see another example like that. Let's talk more about that. That in our efforts to understand the world, we develop constructs or patterns that make the world meaningful to us. We look at the world through transparent patterns or templates. This is a way that we make some sort of templates in this form that we are understanding, and we are using. For example, we can say that every person is wearing sunglasses of his own choice, the color of his own choice, the shades of those glasses sunglasses are are of his own choice, because everyone is interpreting the world with the different lens, and no one interpretation is going to be the perfect reflection of the reality. So there is always an alternative construct that might do better job for accounting for the facts. So as much narratives, as much interpretations we take, it is going to help us to understand the situation more clearly when we are going to have more alternatives of that particular situation. Thus our position in the world is one of the constructive alternativism, as we change or revise our constructs in order to understand it more accurately. Then there is one more important concept by Kelly, that is fundamental postulate corollaries. In order to present and explain his theory, he used this term, and he used the basic assumption of fundamental postulate, and he elaborated that in the 11 corollaries he has presented. The fundamental postulate, let's first talk about that. What is that? It is the person process which is psychologically influencing his events and his prediction of those events, that how he is going to understand, predict and forecast what is going to happen like a scientist, and that is influenced by the psychological events or by the happenings. He is going to understand the future or forecast and predict the future events or based on those. That actually orient their behaviors and ideas about the world towards the goal of accurate, useful predictions. There are 11 corollaries that we are going to discuss. The first is construction, that people anticipate events by interpreting them. What we mean by that, that every person is going to construct his own anticipation, as I have given the example of a class of a student who is going to get out of the class. Then people anticipate events by interpreting by that event generally. Then individuality, every person is going to make their own interpretations about that. Then when we talk about organization, then people develop an organized system of constructs. For example, we used to label or organize that information. For example, if someone talks about animals or wild animals, then they might have mentioned some categories. They might have organized that into one information, like there are some pet animals, some are the farm animals, some are the wild animals. So this is the organization of the information they are going to have. Then dichotomy is always, we can say that we have two options or bipolar nature of the situation. So there could be dichotomy in every situation, either the situation is going to happen, either it is not going to happen. So there are number of explanations. So when there are two options and dichotomy, we will say there is a dichotomy. Then choice, that people choose from among alternatives the most useful construct. Then as I discussed dichotomy, in dichotomy it could be two options. For example, if one person trustworthy or not trustworthy, then we can construct our reality. Then the choice, then when a person is going to have one broad face of choices, for example, if he is going to select a subject or a field and he has number of choices of his interest, then he is going to choose one among the most favorite subjects. Then there is the range corollary, which says that each construct has a limited range of focus. For example, if we are going to talk about friendly versus unfriendliness, for example, then he is going to rate the range of this aspect or characteristic is, it can be applied on strangers, the friendliness or versus non-friendly, it can be applied on friends, it can be applied on neighbors, it can be applied on strangers. So it has a range on which it can focus on. Then we are going to talk about the experience, that constructs are changed in the light of experience. For example, one person has experienced something and then in the next situation he has experienced it differently, then it is going to construct his own reality again. Then we talk about modulation. Constructs are open to change and alteration. For example, if you are learning something, if you are stick to it, if you are going to stick to that method, and then someone told you that no, this was not the right way, then there is another step that you need to do into that action or into that skill, that is called modulation. If the person is open and adapt to that new information, then it is called modulation. Fragmentation is that people may use constructs that seem to be incompatible. Fragmentation, in it they are going to use incompatible construct. For example, if someone is entering into a funeral, he is going to have a different sort of attitude, behavior, actions, body language, everything than the person who is entering into a wedding. So it is incompatible to each other. Then the same is going to be, he is entering into a party or social situations versus he is entering into a class. So these are the incompatible constructs. So communality, the communication is based on similar personal constructs. The communication is based on similar personal constructs. Then the last one is sociability. The social interactions entail understanding constructs. The example for commonality, it could be that some people who used to share similar traits or characteristics in the personality, then you are going to listen to them, or then you are going to adapt to them, or they are going to adapt to you. So the similarity is going to make it easier for people to communicate better. And sociability, social interactions entail understanding constructs. For example, one person is understanding the limit or the capability of another person. For example, a teacher who is going to tailor the teaching method, or who is going to tailor the concept based on the level of understanding or the sociability factor on the basis of that social interaction that they are going to have with the teacher, that whatever way they are going to understand, a teacher is going to tailor or shift the method of teaching into that way in which they can understand it. So this is called sociability. Then reconstruction of the old concepts. In this we are going to talk about that Kelly has also referred to the self identity and the identity of others. And when he talked about the self construct, then he is going to perceive that there are consistencies in our own behavior and how we are going to construct our own reality, and how we make ourselves understand that this is who we are. For example, if you label yourself as honest, sincere, friendly, and so forth, as per this example, then self construct is developed out of our relationship with other people, and this is how you are going to label yourself, and these are the constructs that you are going to identify yourself with. And when you are constructing, or when you are construing another person, or giving their constructs of their personality, then we think of another person as hostile. And when we are saying giving some label to another person, then it means that we are making those qualities which are quite opposite, or a dimension of our own experience. So this is going to be quite opposite to ours. So our self interpretation is linked to our own role or role relationship with other people. Then further moving towards the role, and the role is some behavior we anticipate or we link with another person or with our own self as well, that people engage in based on their understanding of the behavior and the constructs of others. So we do not have to be accurate in our construction to enter into a role. Whatever role we take, we might make true constructions, or we might make false constructions. For example, if a student thinks, believes, or says that my teacher is biased, or they are demanding or unfair, then it is not going to make that person unfair, biased, or demanding. This is just about the construct that that person has developed. Nor does the role has to be reciprocated by the other person. The professor may remain fair in spite of students' misconstruction. What is needed in order to play a role is simply some construct of another person. So it just does not need to be true or false. Then he talks about and further clarifies that what role is, and the role is referred to as a behavioral expectations. For example, we associate some roles with the teacher, mother, doctor, physician. So these are the roles that one is going to play, particularly given by the society. And in Kelly's theory, the role is defined by an individual in an effort to understand the behavior of other people and relate to them. The person is in the process, and an organism is a continual activity whose behavior. So in short, Kelly wants to say that there are roles that one person is going to play, and that individual is going to put an effort to understand their behavior, to understand it, and to relate themselves to them. And then he talks about the development, and he says that development is not, he talks about the development not in terms of biological terms, but only in the form of psychological construction or the construct that he is going to develop. Then Kelly believes that there are no inner forces like motivation, drive, instinct that are going to play its role to move a person or to build his own motivation. And lastly, according to Kelly, that it is quite inappropriate that we conceive of a person as motivated by other external or internal forces. So he says that there is no link to either direct any sort of motivations towards a person or link any sort of motivation towards a person if he is doing something. And he says that not all constructs are verbalized, not all of them are conscious, or they are not going to be put into words. Whereas he says that conscious and unconscious processes may be are accounting for or influencing our capacity to form the constructs, and that there is no need that we are going to put them into words. Sometimes we are unable to put our constructs into words or explain them into our words. So let's conclude it with this role playing activity. All of you are going to do it, and I hope you are going to acquire some new areas, and you are going to understand yourself much better in the form of in under by the name of Kelly's theory, the personal construct theory. And now, after doing this role play activity, you will better understand it about Kelly's theory and your own self. Good luck.